Welcome everyone to the third episode of Fighting Irish Foodies, coming here from Foley's in O'Neill Hall at Notre Dame Stadium. Fighting Irish Foodies is a monthly cooking show, and every month we will have a brand new chef from Notre Dame or from within the Notre Dame family to join us. This next hour or so, it's all about having some fun, learning a thing or two, and not laughing too much at my ineptitude in the kitchen. Although I must admit that my mother and my aunts got a lot of laughs after the last show. Before we get started, I want to give you just a couple quick updates from campus. First, right across the parking lot, as we're looking out here right now, you can see the Compton Family Ice Arena. And that is the setting for the vaccination of our students. Today is the first day that the Pfizer vaccine is being offered, and we expect over the course of this next year to administer the first dose of the vaccine to several thousand students. Father John has given a challenge that if we get 90% of the student population vaccinated with their first vaccine in the next week, he is going to loosen a number of the restrictions for student gatherings on campus. So we're really excited and feel really blessed that in collaboration with the state of Indiana, we're able to offer the vaccinations. We're also really pleased that we are going to host an in-person commencement. I know when we've compared ourselves with the other top 20 schools in the country, we're virtually alone in offering an in-person commencement. So on May 23rd, we will gather in the stadium. Each of the graduates will be able to invite, right now as things stand, 2 family members to accompany them, and we're going to have our graduation ceremonies in person. And again, everyone else seems to be doing it virtually, or they're having a commencement ceremony with no family members. So we feel privileged about that. Now we'll get back to our show, but before we get started, I feel compelled to let everyone know that we are working in a safe environment. A plexiglass structure sits between myself and the chef on set, and all of our camera operators are double masked and a safe distance away. Huge kudos and thanks to Notre Dame Studios. The team over there are without par. These guys are the best of the best, and we're so lucky to have them. So let's get rolling. I grew up in a large Italian family, extended family, in the Buffalo, New York area. So if there's one thing that I know, it's Italian food. Now, of course, that is how to eat it and not prepare it. I'll leave the rest to my mom and experts like our chef here today. So joining us is the chef de cuisine. First, I just have to say, before I introduce him any further, I just love that French title. I'm willing to trade in the vice presidency thing for the chef de cuisine of university relations. But this is the chef de cuisine at Notre Dame's Morris Inn and the new McKenna Hall and Conference Center, which is about to reopen this fall. His name is Chef Ryli Vissers. When you see Chef Ryli Vissers, first of all, it's such a cool name. You think he should be like The Bachelor. Plus, he looks like he could be The Bachelor. And he's going to teach us how to make springtime risotto. Ryli, welcome. And let me ask, why did you choose springtime risotto as the dish for today?
I chose spring risotto. I felt like this was a dish that anybody should be able to cook. And I think using local and seasonal ingredients was a great opportunity to showcase that. And so that's how I came up with the dish. It's an asparagus risotto, seeing that asparagus starting pretty much this month all the way through the summer should be in season. So I couldn't think of a better way to highlight such a great ingredient. And I kind of knew that you were Italian, so I thought maybe we should take a nice route here for Lou and do something.
I'm loving it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So today with risotto, we're kind of just going to go over how everything starts first and how we have our station set up before we start cooking. Risotto really takes about anywhere from 18 to 25 minutes to cook from start to finish. Something I do that when we're prepping anything, I like to have everything in order. So as we cook this dish today, you'll see Lou and myself grabbing ingredients off this tray. Everything's in order from how it starts to all the way to how it finishes. So if Lou's got some funny stories and I happen to get lost, we'll be able to stay on track by just following this. So one of the things also that I like to do is just double check all of our ingredients and make sure everything's here. I wrote this recipe, so I have a good idea that everything's here. But I always like to just go through everything, make sure it's there, make sure nothing's bad that we can't use. And yeah, so today, obviously, the main components of risotto, anywhere you go, is butter, onion, and wine. Traditionally, it's always been white wine. You can use red wine. There's a few varieties that do. Today, we're using a white wine. And yeah, that's the fundamentals of risotto, really, is butter, onions, and wine. And from there, the world is your oyster. You can take it in any direction you'd like to go. And as I stated earlier, today we're going to do an asparagus risotto.
So tell us a little bit, how did risotto come about? I know there's a bit of a legend when rice was introduced to Italy. The Italians never followed the rules. So how did this evolve?
So risotto came over from Spain, and the rice was a short grain rice, and the Italians loved it right when it came to their shores. And later on, they found out that that specific rice variety grows really well in the northern region of Italy, specifically Piedmont. So that's where risotto had originally started. And I was telling Lou a story that it was a king in Italy that was having a wedding, and a chef was not happy with the king and things that were going on. And so the chef snuck a bunch of saffron into the risotto, and it turned it really bright yellow and gave it a different flavor complexion altogether. And they ended up loving it. And it turned into now what is a famous dish worldwide known as Risotto Milanesa. And that is the saffron and the white wine combining together to give it this unique flavor and color that you'll see a yellow risotto sometimes. And that's really how it started.
So the lesson behind the story is, folks, you never want to upset the chef, because you never know what they're going to do to your food. So this is really key. I'm going to stay on good side of Ryli here, because I eat a lot of meals, at his hand here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do we do first?
So the first step is going to be our butter. Here we just have a little bit of neutral oil in this squeeze bottle, and I like to use this because the butter browns quite a bit faster than oil, so we just use this so the butter doesn't brown or get burnt at all.
Would this be like a vegetable oil?
This today we're using grapeseed oil. But
grapeseed oil?
Yeah, you could use a salad oil, a vegetable oil, really whatever. It's just something neutral flavored that, like peanut probably wouldn't work, but something that's very mellow and can go well with just about anything. So we just give a nice healthy squirt of that. And the first thing on our tray I have labeled is our first butter. This will go in, and we'll just let this melt. And also in our risotto today, as we were talking earlier, we're going to feature some Morel Mushrooms. We harvested these last year and dried them out ourselves, so we would have them around any time throughout the year. Looking at the math, and I think we were talking right about now, these are about $4 an ounce, which is very expensive. But throughout my time living here in this area, I found out that these grow regionally, just about anywhere in Indiana and Michigan. And there's a really big following for morels that people go foraging and hunting for them all over the place.
Like I'll be at my kids' soccer games, and it's near like a wooded area, and in between games they'll jump out and look for morel mushrooms. Of course, I've never found one, but they collect them and use them at home, or they sell them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even a couple local grocery stores will even purchase them. That's how big of a commodity they are.
Huh.
So a couple tools when you're making risotto that are pretty essential. Some people will probably turn their heads, but traditionally it's always a wooden spoon. Today we're going to use a rubber spatula just for our purposes here. And a ladle, generally you would have a pot with your hot liquid next to you, so you could ladle your liquid in bit by bit. Today I've done the pleasure of just putting our hot liquid in a pitcher. That way we can just pour it in as we go. But those are basically the essentials for risotto. All you need is a wooden spoon and a ladle to ladle your liquid in, and you're good to go.
Hey, Ryli, we have a question from the audience.
Yeah.
Judy from Midland, Michigan asks, can you use fresh morels?
Yeah, absolutely. That would be even a better choice. Right now, they're kind of, some are coming up, some are not, and it's a little bit of hit or miss. But yeah, fresh is always better, I think.
So fresh morel means that you're not drying them out. You're just
Correct.
picking them, put them right in.
Yep. So our butter is melted over here.
Okay.
Next thing we're gonna add in is our onions. Now I did mix in our onions with ramps. Ramps are also another thing regionally that are grown around here. And they literally just come up out of the ground anywhere you can think of. And I think Lou has some on his table right here. These,
Oh yeah, let me hold them up.
they're little roots. They taste like if a chive and an onion had a baby, is the best way I could describe it, and it's called a ramp. So they usually come out of the ground in bunches. You can see the roots right there. We're gonna dump our onions and ramps in.
Wow. Joking, I didn't do that.
Try.
So this is just pulling up out of yards. I mean, just go and,
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much. I mean, I've seen them in ditches and all over the place.
huh.
Hey, Ryli, we have another question.
Yeah.
Ben from Cullman, Alabama, has this question. Is there a specific type of pan I should use to prepare risotto?
I would generally say a heavy bottom pan, something that can take a lot of the heat, and something that's wider and has space so you can maneuver around. If you have a little pan and you're trying to do this, you're probably going to make quite the mess. And this just gives you a chance to have everything cook a little bit more evenly. The more space you have, that way everything can cook evenly and you're not crowding the pan.
Ben, I strongly recommend Le Creuset. This is the only pan that I'll cook with, and this is my second cooking show, so the only one I have done twice now. I do have a sponsorship from Le Creuset, so in full disclosure, I should let you know that. Not true, but it is a nice pan. It's very heavy.
Yeah, this pan, technical terms, it's called a Dutch oven or a French oven, but it's a really nice piece of equipment that you can utilize for just about any kind of cooking, braising, stews, soups, just about anything you can think of. And it's really high heat, so you can put it in ovens or anything that you need to use it for. So as we're cooking the onions here, we really don't want them to get any color. We just want them to become translucent and lightly sauteed, which is just so they almost become see-through.
Hey, Ryli, we just got another question for you.
Yeah.
This is Dan from Petoskey, Michigan. He wants to know, are there specific types of rice you should use to make risotto?
Yeah, so the two main rices, it's both short grain rices. One's called carnoli rice, which is another Italian rice. They both look the exact same, but the carnoli is just a little bit bigger of a rice grain, and then arborio would be the next one. And those are the two classic rices you would use when making risotto.
We're going to be using arborio today, right?
Correct.
Here. Terrific.
So our onions are nice and translucent. We're going to go ahead and add our rice in next.
Just want to shout out to Petoskey. I went on vacation for the first time this past summer up to Walloon Lake and just fell in love with that area. Northern Michigan is just gorgeous.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
So once our rice is added, we're just going to go ahead and incorporate all the butter and oil onto the rice. We just want to lightly toast this rice. We're not looking again for any color at all. We just want to get the rice toasted, because what happens with risotto is you're cooking the starches on the rice, and as you cook the starches, they start to release from the rice, and as you're adding liquid, it creates this beautiful, thick, rich sauce. And that is kind of what sets risotto apart from a lot of other preparations.
So do you prepare, is it different in Italy than it is in the States? Do most people prepare risotto as an entree or more of an appetizer? Is it served with the fish or not?
So traditionally in Italy, they have such a high respect for risotto that it's served as its own course. And usually it's the first course. Here in the States, we generally serve it kind of with entrees or with proteins. A lot of the times I like to pair it with fish or something a little bit lighter. Risotto is pretty rich, so the lighter the protein, like a chicken or a fish or anything along like a shellfish, lobster, scallops, I think it lends itself a little bit better to those kind of proteins.
Okay, now as a non-chef and more of an eater, do you eat your risotto with a spoon or with a fork?
I definitely eat it with a spoon.
Oh, you definitely do, okay.
Yeah, risotto should not, it should never be able to hold its shape. It should be creamy and smooth, and it should kind of flow.
Oh, great. Okay.
So that's a good tip I always tell cooks and anybody cooking it. It should not be able to hold its shape. You should be able to put it down and it flows nicely.
Beautiful. So how did
Ryli,
you...
we have one more question, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This is from Rose from Walnut Creek, California, and she wants to know, is Carnaroli rice better for this than arborio rice? What would you pick?
I don't know if there's any hard evidence or facts behind that, but I like Carnaroli a little bit just because it's a bigger grain, so you have a little more forgiveness as you're cooking it. So if you happen to overcook it, it still might have a little bit of texture, whereas opposed to arborio is a little bit smaller, so if you're not really paying attention to what you're doing, you could overcook it pretty fast. It's a good question.
Arborios is for the higher level chefs like us. It takes a little bit more of a delicate touch.
So our rice is nice and toasted now. Again, there's no color on here. And this, I don't know what happened in culinary school. This is one of the first things they teach you is how to cook risotto. And the smell of toasted rice is something that I just really enjoy now. I don't know why.
It is delicious. I feel like just jumping in right there.
So now we're going to go ahead and add our wine to this.
So what kind of white wine is this? You know, just
This is Pinot Grigio.
Pinot Grigio.
Yes.
Is
So,
it important? Does it matter?
yes, it was imported.
It is.
Yes.
So you don't
Ideally,
use a Chardonnay.
no, I would not use Chardonnay. It's a little too strong for this application. And a good rule of thumb when you're cooking with red wine or white wine, I always say use something you drink. I know a lot of people like to use cheaper wines, and obviously when you get into kitchens, you have to really play your numbers, but I always say use something that you would actually drink because it has flavor too.
Trick. Mike, please.
So now that the white wine is in there, we're going to let that cook until almost all of it's evaporated.
Ryli, we have another question from the audience.
Yeah.
Michaela from Green Bay, Wisconsin asks, if I don't have white wine available, is there a good substitute?
Before he answers this, I just want to say that Ryli is from Appleton, Wisconsin, right next to Green Bay. And so he's talking to his own folk here.
Yeah, love the Wisconsin people. If you don't have white, you can use red. It's going to take it to a different flavor profile. There's something called verjus, which is like the byproduct when you make wine. It's really acidic and has a lot of tannins in it. You could use that, but no. I mean, really, it's like I said in the beginning, it's white wine or wine of some sort, onions, and the rice itself.
So you're left-handed.
Yeah.
Wow. Are you the only chef at Notre Dame who's left-handed?
There's a few of us. Actually, you know what? Now that you say that, I think Cy and Josh are both left-handed.
You're kidding.
Don't quote me on Josh. I know Cy is for sure.
Wow.
Yeah, because when we work next to each other, we always enjoyed it because we're not bumping arms.
So how did you fall in love with cooking? When did you know?
At a younger age, I really liked seeing things like from start to finish, and I loved how like you could see something happen so fast with food. Like you could really do something amazing in such a short amount of time. But maybe when I was younger, I just loved food, and we didn't, as a family, we didn't always go out to the best places and do the best things for food. And so as I got older and started doing different things, I just had a much more deeper appreciation for really good food and just really good ingredients. Because at the end of the day, you have to eat it to survive. So I think I just loved it.
And I heard that you still don't go out to many restaurants. I mean, you not only cook at work, but you love to go home and barbecue and cook at home, right?
Yeah, people, I think my partner thinks I'm crazy too. She laughs at me, but yeah, sometimes I'll cook 10 or 12 hours here at work, and then I'll go home and cook another 3 or 4 at home. But sometimes that's where like the most creative juices come out, when you're just at home having fun, cooking with your heart.
That's fantastic.
So just about all of our wine has reduced. We're going to go ahead and add enough of our liquid to cover the rice completely. And I say cover the rice completely because if the rice is not covered by the liquid, sometimes the rice won't cook all the way through, and you'll have rice that's really hard and then rice that is really soft. So now we'll just let this cook and let that liquid reduce out again till it's almost gone, and then we'll add our next batch. And
So how Notre Dame discovered you, Ryli, is pretty fascinating. Would you recount the story? My understanding is that you were at a cooking competition, which you used to participate in a lot, and you won this particular one. And tell us the story.
yeah, so I was doing ice carving and cooking competitions around the Midwest and East Coast specifically. And the old chef at the university, Don Miller, great guy, he was a judge at the ACF competition, and he saw me, and he's just like, hey, I really like what you're doing. I like your style. Why don't you come cook for me? So I ended up coming here and working at Morris Inn for 2 days, like a wine dinner, I think it was, and we kind of just got to know each other. We connected back, and I ended up coming on board just a few months later, but ended up cooking for the football team instead of going to the Morris Inn. So it's kind of funny now that I'm at the Morris Inn. But yeah, so that's how we met. He was also from Wisconsin, so I think that hit it off for us, and we kind of connected right there.
And you won that competition, right?
Yeah, that
You
was.
won a few competitions. Like, what dishes did you cook to win?
I have a couple signature dishes. One was a duck dish, a couple chicken dishes, a lobster dish.
And these are things like you're given like ingredients. You got 60 minutes to create something.
Some
right?
of them, yes, and then
Yeah.
some of them you can kind of come in with like your own predetermined dish that
Yeah.
you've practiced. But yeah, sometimes you come in, they give you a basket and say, hey,
Yeah.
you have 2 hours or 1 hour.
So congratulations. I mean, that's a great story and a great way to come to Notre Dame. So tell me about cooking for the football players. My guess is they don't have the most refined palates. They like quantity. How did that work?
Yeah, so there's definitely there's certain things they like, certain things they don't like, but it was a really good experience because I always call it I kind of earned my chops there, but that's where I really like figured out like how volume cooking works and how to cook larger numbers but still make it like the best quality possible. And I think working at North Dining Hall and with the chefs there and with the football team, that grew me very fast.
Were you amazed at the quantity of food they can put down?
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, even now I still see them, and some of the guys, I'm like, holy cripes.
Yeah.
It is pretty astonishing.
That's great.
Riley, we have another question from the audience. This is from Marcus from Columbus, Ohio. He asks, I've seen some risotto recipes that call for adding liquid a bit at a time versus in larger amounts. Is there a benefit to either approach?
So if you add a lot of liquid at once, that would be maybe for more like a restaurant kind of cooking, if you're cooking risotto for like an entree in your restaurant, because what you can do is you can add a lot of liquid, and then you can let the risotto partially cook in that liquid until it's 80% done, and then you would cool it down and reheat it with the same kind of ingredients that we're using here today to finish it, but you're just not finishing it all the way. Whereas the method we're doing today is we're going to eat it right away and finish the dish all the way through.
Mm-hmm. Good question. This smells delicious, I have to say.
Thank you.
So now, when you're cooking at home, it seems to me like there's two types of cooks. One kind of follows the spirit of the law, is just kind of this feels or looks like the right and tastes a little bit and this and that. And others follow kind of the letter of the law. Everything is measured very precisely. What is your tendency? And my guess is it's got to be different when you're managing a bunch of cooks and you're the chef de cuisine.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I play both sides of that fence. I definitely think cooking by touch or feel is a real thing. Like you can definitely, after 20 years of cooking steaks, most people know how to cook them. It just depends. Like as you said, if you're running an operation and you're making 300 gallons of chili or whatever it may be, yeah, you probably need to follow the recipe quite a bit more strict. Whereas if I'm making chili for 10 people, let's have at it and just cook from the heart and make it how you like. But one thing I always say to cooks and anybody who wants to cook or is cooking is that a recipe is really just a guideline at the end of the day. Like, yes, it has your formalized amounts in the food, but it's just a guideline to point you in the right direction. Really, I've always said the best cooking comes from your heart. So as you cook,
It's a very Italian perspective on the world, right? You know, kind of spirit of the law.
yeah, I mean,
guidelines. Rules are really guidelines.
they got to be there. I get it, but
Yeah.
I also think the best of it comes from your heart.
Riley, we have another question from a viewer right now.
Yeah.
It's from Kathy Barnes from Carbondale, Colorado. Kathy wants to know, I've always added the wine to the broth. Does it matter to add it directly to rice or broth?
Yeah, so I like to add it directly to the rice because when you're sautéing the rice, the first thing when you deglaze is basically when you're letting something cook and you want to pick up the bottom of the pan, like anything that's on the bottom, if it's caramelized onions or whatever. I think that first initial adding of the white wine opens up the rice a little bit and starts releasing the starches, so it builds the liquid. But I think that flavor is the first flavor introduced to the rice, and I think that's really important because if you just have the wine in your broth, yes, it's going to be in there, but like it's kind of jump-starting the process a little bit. So as the wine goes in first, it's the first liquid absorbed into the rice, and it really takes on that flavor. So my liquid
How
is
do you keep a happy kitchen? When you think about, you know, the team that's working under you and you know, it can get to be somewhat routine day in and day out. How do you keep a happy kitchen?
I think you have to, first off, one of the most important things I always think is just listen. You have to listen to the cooks. You have to listen to everybody on your team because I think that really goes a long way when people listen and truly hear what your opinion is because at the end of the day, I'm not the person on the line cooking steaks or cooking French fries. Yes, I know how to do that, but I want to know what their struggles are, what is working really well for them. So I think if you respect everybody and just listen, actually, I think that goes a long way. And I think keeping them interested. You kind of got to keep them on their toes a little bit, whether it's new menus, new techniques, new practices, whatever it may be, something to just keep them interested. That goes a long way. And when I was a cook, that was always amazing. When the chef or the chef de cuisine came to me and said, hey, I have this project, or hey, what do you think of doing this? I think that people really enjoy that responsibility sometimes.
And do you try to inspire innovation?
Yeah.
Like to, you know, say, come up with a new dish.
Yeah.
Experimented with something. Let's see it. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think sometimes the moral opinions are not for the better, but I think for the most part it is for the better because you may think something tastes one way while 8 other people may think it tastes another way. So I think that openness in the kitchen really goes a long way. We're going to add a little bit of more liquid here. Mine's starting to reduce quite a bit. In our liquid today, at Roars we bring in whole Parmesan wheels. So what I do in catering is we take the rinds off of the Parmesan and then we'll cook the rinds in water and essentially make a Parmesan broth. So we have some today just to show you. It's kind of this milky looking substance, but this is Parmesan water or a Parmesan broth. And I like that because it gives the risotto a really nice, cheesy, rich flavor and a little bit of umami because I think Parmesan really is its own flavor on its own. And then we just have a simple vegetable stock made from carrots, celery, onions, shallots, mushrooms, just some basic kitchen ingredients. But I think that the liquid that goes into the risotto is a big part because that's obviously what flavors your risotto. So you could have beef stock, chicken stock, seafood, whatever flavor profile you'd like to go for.
Now, I've always had a little bit of a bias for Romano cheese over Parmesan.
Okay.
Like on my pasta, it doesn't seem like it gets used a lot, the Romano cheese.
I'm actually on your side. I
You
really
are?
like Pecorino Romano.
Yeah, Pecorino Romano.
Yeah, it just comes from, I want to say it's a sheep's milk, so I think maybe that might throw some people off sometimes. It is a different flavor. It's a little bit stronger in a different way, whereas Parmesan's more mellow and salty. But yeah, it's a great cheese. I don't know why myself either.
Yeah, cool.
Riley, we have another question for you. This one comes from the homeland. Gianna from Florence, Italy wants to know, what can you substitute for creamed asparagus? Would that have been cream of asparagus soup?
Say that part again?
That's the exact question. What can you substitute for creamed asparagus? Would that have been cream of asparagus soup? So could you be using the cream of asparagus soup instead of, again, I'm
Yeah,
not a cook.
certainly. So one thing I do when I'm doing like a more vegetable-forward risotto is I like to make like a creamed. So if I was doing creamed corn, I would make my own homemade creamed corn, and then that would just be an element to fold in to give it a nice bright yellow color and more deeper corn flavor. The creamed asparagus was the same thing. It was creamed asparagus that gets pureed together, and it helps with the color and more asparagus flavor. That is not necessary, though, when you're making risotto. That's just something personally I've liked to do throughout the years. So if it's butternut squash or corn or whatever it may be, that's just a touch that I like to add. So I'm going to try the rice right now. I know it's not done, but something that I always like to do is maybe after the first 10, 12 minutes, I just like to taste a piece of rice just to see where it's at in the cooking process. So I'll usually just do 1 or 2 granules, literally. And the outside's soft, but the inside's still pretty tough. So I know we still got at least another 10 or 12 minutes to go yet.
It's beginning to taste like risotto.
Yes, yes. So something that also is important as you're making risotto is you kind of want to stir it pretty consistently. You don't have to hover over the stove and stir it the entire time, but I would stir it pretty often. One, you don't want the rice to cook to the bottom of your pan, and stirring the starches inside and stirring the rice will help your sauce continue to thicken. As if you just leave it in one spot, it's just literally going to sink down to the bottom
I get
of your
a little
pan.
bit of the rice at the bottom of my pan.
Almost
just
like a
little-
rice pudding.
Yeah.
So I have some herbs here for us today that we're going to end up putting in ours. I just brought over some fresh chives.
Are we going to cut these first?
Yeah, yep. Some basil and some fresh thyme.
Ryli, we have another question. This is from Emma from Chicago, Illinois. She has this question. My risotto is a bit firm. Any tips on how to make my risotto softer?
Keep cooking. Risotto is really just a touch and feel, and that's why you saw me try the rice right now. I think it's important after 12 minutes to just keep tasting the rice, and if it's not where you want it, keep cooking. But just be careful, because once you take it too far, it will overcook pretty quick. But that's again kind of what Lou was saying in the beginning about cooking by feel. It's just something that comes to you, and you know the flavors that you want and the texture.
Would you add a little bit more of the liquid to it or not?
Yeah, you would just add more liquid and then keep cooking it.
What's this here?
That is fresh thyme.
Fresh thyme. Nobody's going to be eating my food, so my nose is up against it, just so you know.
So we'll take some of this chives here, and we'll just do a nice thin slice. And something I had mentioned to Lou before is I like to do my herbs a little bit differently. So we can just split this pile in half so we don't have to do it all at once. And you'll see the knives that we have, they kind of have like a tip that goes at a straight point here as opposed to like a straight knife. And what I like to do is when you bunch your chives up, you just make a nice little pile. And I like to take the tip of the knife down. There's less friction, and so you get a nice clean cut. And I think of my arm like a paper cutter, you know, the motion of an actual old paper cutter. And I just think that you have less of a chance of cutting yourself as opposed to doing like a rock cut where you're putting a lot of pressure on the knife and the cutting board. And if your hand or anything slips, that's when not good things happen. So I like to take the tip of the knife, especially for herbs, and just do a nice little cut that comes right across it. And that way the stuff doesn't stick to your knife as much. There's less friction as you cut it. And it's really the sharpest point of the knife. So yeah, that's my knife tip for the day.
What's the what do you call that kind of cut? Is there a name for it or not?
No specific cut. I mean, I guess the first one that I was kind of rocking is like a rock chop, and this
Okay.
is just more of just a simple cut.
How many
Just-
different cuts are there? Like when you go to culinary school, do they teach you like there's 42 different cuts? Or
Yeah, there's a lot. To be honest, I probably forgot over half of them.
Yeah.
But I remember when I was in school, they had a poster up that had, it had to be 40 to 50 different classical cuts. And those are like cuts that are like by the book. So I'm sure there's cuts people have
What
made
did
up
we do
too.
the last time? The last show, was it a spiral cut or something that we were doing? Is this called a spiral?
Spiral, or was it the like a chiffonade where you rolled this up?
No, we were cutting, was it the celery? I forget what he named that kind of, maybe it was I don't know,
Interesting.
kind of cut it was.
So I'm going to taste our risotto again. I just want to see where this is at. Our liquid's starting to get pretty thick on its own now. The rice is getting there. It's a little soft on the outside, still firm on the inside. And the whole time this pan is still cooking the rice pretty rapidly hot. So at the end of the day, it's funny when you think about it, risotto is really just braised rice, which is an odd way to look at it, but you're just constantly cooking rice in liquid.
Riley, we have another question from one of our viewers.
Yeah.
Kathleen Sandner from St. Augustine, Florida, asked this: would sage and rosemary work also? It smells like Italy here in Florida. She must be cooking along with the show.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, sage and rosemary can work too. It's really just your preference, whatever herbs you like and whatever you think goes well with the dish. Like today, I didn't do dill, but I know generally dill goes really well with asparagus, so that's something, those flavor profiles. But yeah, anything you'd like can go well with it. And that's something I like to tell people too, is like, there's some formalized guidelines and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, food is just whatever you like and however you want to make it. It doesn't have to be one thing. You know, Lou's grandmother may make spaghetti and meatballs different than how my grandmother. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong.
Right.
So I think that's always a good rule of thumb when you're cooking, is however you like it.
Okay, so there's a contentious topic I want to bring up, and my understanding is that growing up in Appleton, Wisconsin, you were raised to be a pretty fervent Wisconsin Badgers fan. And Notre Dame matches up against Wisconsin this year in Soldier Field. And so that'll be, I mean, the Wisconsin, state of Wisconsin follows their teams. I mean, they're really big. So I just want to ask you, for the record here, and you know, you're going to be pulling for your employer, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I have to.
That's the right answer. It wasn't said though with a conviction that all that convincing. Well, we're going to win you over. I know we're going to win you over. We already got your quarterback.
Right, I saw
came over
that.
from Wisconsin. That's a start. So
Yeah, I know. It's been like over 4 years now, so it's like I've had lived a term here in school. So I think by now it's time I start thinking about coming to the good side, maybe.
I agree.
All right, I'm going to add a little bit more liquid again, just to cover the rice. It's evaporated. And again, it's important this liquid is warm or hot. If you have cold liquid going into hot risotto, you're not going to get the same effect. The rice actually might seize up on you, but it's a very important step that your liquid is warm or hot, and that you're adding hot to hot, so you're not fighting each other.
So you preheated it in the pan before
Yes.
we got started in that liquid. Okay.
Yep. I'm going to try the risotto again. Our rice is getting pretty close here.
So how do you know when it's done?
That's really just kind of like the question somebody asked before. It's just on how you like the rice texture to be. Some people actually like it a little more firm. I mean, I'm sure you've had al dente pasta,
Yeah.
where it is quite a bit more firm.
Right.
It's really just a preference again. I like it kind of somewhere in the middle between al dente and cooked.
Yeah. Good.
Riley, we have another question from a viewer.
Yeah.
It's from Brenda from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She wants to know, my risotto is a bit sticky right now. Is that okay?
sticky, like it's sticking in the pot possibly. If it is sticking in the pot, I would say add more liquid and keep stirring. Constantly keep stirring if it's getting really sticky, and that possibly means at the beginning when you sauteed the rice, the starches weren't cooked out enough, but you can still fix it from there if you add more liquid and keep stirring. Just add enough liquid that you can pick everything up and keep it free floating.
Where do you get your inspiration from, Ryli? I mean, do you watch cooking shows? Do you try to go to certain chefs that you know that you really like? And how do you keep learning in this business?
Yeah, I mean, it's really a combination of things. Competitions, working in other kitchens, kind of just seeing what other people are doing. Yeah, a lot of cooking shows, a lot of books. I think.
So you continue to enter competitions.
Yeah, I mean, this year, obviously, with COVID, I didn't do that. But in the past, even during, like, Christmas break, say, I would go usually work in a different kitchen for free for a couple days, just so I could just learn the operation, see what different things they're doing, what could I bring back here to make our operation better. So stuff like that, just to always stay sharp and stay involved.
So you're big into grilling, barbecuing. What kind of grill do you have at home?
So at home, I use a Big Green Egg grill. It's a Kamado style grill, which is a ceramic grill that's fed by air. So it's actually completely operated by air and oxygen. I like those grills a lot. I think they're really versatile. You can use them for baking, grilling, roasting, smoking. It's more than just a grill. So I think that's what brought me to them.
Yeah, it's the rage now. Those green, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
So we can taste this again. How's your rice tasting over there?
It tastes pretty good to me. I like my pasta al dente, so this is pretty close.
Yeah, I like mine where it's at too right now.
Yeah.
So we can shut our power off here,
Okay.
just so there's no heat. And now the basil, we're just going to take and kind of put the basil inside of each other, almost like a little basil blanket.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to roll it up. So you just have this little basil bundle.
Mm-hmm.
And that we're just going to come across and slice really thin again. And you'll have little basil strands that will be able to fold right into the risotto.
Ryli, we have another question from a viewer. This is Suzanne from Wall, New Jersey. Suzanne wants to know, where did you go to culinary school?
Appleton, Wisconsin. It's called Fox Valley Technical College. Really, really great program. I was just doing a wedding tasting the other day, and somebody asked me that, and something I'm always proud to say is, unfortunately, it was the year after I left, but they won the national championship for best culinary school in the country. And they were going up against Le Cordon Bleu, Johnson & Wales, the CIA. So I think that was something really cool.
I think that's the last national championship from a Wisconsin school.
You're probably not wrong there.
No, I'm teasing.
But yeah, I mean, that it was a great experience. The teachers there, the instructors, they didn't just teach you how to be a better chef. They tell you how to be a better person. And those kind of skills stuck with me all the way through. And I think about that and thank them all the time for that.
So these are long right now, the parsley?
Basils?
Basil.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, that's okay.
it's okay to have a long strand.
Yep.
Okay. Basil.
So we're just going to peel a little bit of this thyme off here.
Peel the thyme off.
Yes.
So we don't want the hard stick.
Now, and what you can do is something I always do if you grab it towards the top and use your fingers together, the sprigs come right off.
So
Now
you kind of go against the grain.
Yes. And
Yeah.
now they do make tools for this, I've seen. I'm still just old school. So our risotto is just sitting here now. We've killed the heat. It's soaked up just about all the liquid. We're just chopping our herbs that are going to go inside of here. And then we have a bunch of stuff to finish the risotto off. So I'm going to chop this thyme.
So, what are you chopping? The
thyme.
stuff that you just peeled
Yep.
off.
We're just chopping this a little bit.
Okay.
Now you can always put the thyme in whole too. It's pretty small.
This isn't really coming off for me that well.
Try to, yeah, you got it. Try to do individual pieces.
Okay.
So now that the risotto is done, we can start adding our dairy products too. In mine, I like to use mascarpone cheese. I think it gives it a really nice, creamy, rich flavor. Creme fraiche, which is basically almost like sour cream, just a little bit more mild. And then, of course, the Parmesan cheese. Today, I brought in some asparagus that we just poached off in a little bit of butter, so it's already pre-cooked.
Oh, thank God. We don't have to cut it.
We also have some cooked morel mushrooms that I have brought over too. So we can go ahead and add all this stuff
Add
into
'em
our
all in.
risotto.
We don't have to cut them up. We just throw them right in.
Yep, everything's all ready to rock. And if you're making risotto at home or for a party or anything like that, these kinds of things that you're adding to it could always be done a day or two in advance. That way, when you just show up, you cook the risotto, add everything in that you'd like for it, and that's pretty much it then. Now, being from Wisconsin too, I like a lot of dairy.
So what are you putting the Parmesan in right now?
Yep, Parmesan first.
Ryli, we have another question from a viewer.
Yeah.
This is Kevin from Salt Lake City. Kevin wants to know, could you prepare a protein to go with this risotto recipe? And if yes, what would you recommend?
Yeah, absolutely. Anything light. Lou kind of asked that question earlier about something else that could go with it. One of my favorite things to serve with risotto is scallops. I don't know if it's just the lightness from the scallop and the richness from the risotto. I always feel like that's a really good combination.
Does the Parmesan make it kind of congeal?
Yeah, a
Brings
little
it
bit.
together?
It helps thicken it a little
Yeah.
bit and brings it all together. So next we can add our creme fraiche and our mascarpone cheese.
I think this is going to be really good.
We might be onto something here.
I think I am going to eat mine. I didn't touch my Guinness stew a couple weeks ago, but this I will eat.
So we'll let that all incorporate. Now we can grab our creamed asparagus.
So you try to stir those
Yep.
cheeses in there?
Yep, just to get them to melt. And you can probably see over on your side, it's starting to become a nice, thick, rich sauce.
Yeah. Wow.
So next we can add in our creamed asparagus.
Cream of asparagus, okay.
And this I'm just going to add by
A spoon?
yeah, a little bit at a time. Since we have a good amount of dairy in here, we don't have to overload it with this. Now from the creamed asparagus, our risotto is going to turn this nice green color.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
How many would this serve?
This right here would serve anywhere from 4 to 6 people if you're doing dinner size portions. If you do something smaller, you could probably get 8 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to taste it to see where we're at. I have salt and pepper here in little containers. And now again, the salt and pepper is something too that I say you can always just adjust as you'd like.
That is really good.
Thank you.
That is really good. It's okay if I put all the salt and all the pepper in there, right? Or no, too much, you think?
Yeah, just a little too much.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, I always like to add bits at a time and then just taste it.
Okay,
I think that's one of the most important things is that you just taste your food as you go
got it.
and just taste it.
Okay, I think I went a little high on the pepper. Mine will have a decided kick to it.
Ryli, got a question from Alex from Indianapolis. He wants to know, since we cooked with white wine, does that mean a white wine would pair well to drink with this dish?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, you could do whatever you'd like, but I definitely think a white wine would pair really well with this. Next, we're going to add a little bit of lemon. I always think risotto needs acid just because it's so rich. So today I just took some cheesecloth around our lemons and tied it so we don't get the seeds in there. But you can go and squeeze a whole half right into it.
And the preparation is everything. You've got this down, so it's really easy.
Yeah, I mean, I think over the years I've found out like at least 80% of it's really the preparation. The cooking part's the fun. It's the prep behind it that
Right.
brings everything together.
I could see being a chef de cuisine as long as I had a sous chef and some cooks.
It's all by team. So we have this second butter here that's labeled second butter. We're just going to add a little bit of that after our butter to keep it rich, and you don't have to add all this. And I cut the butter up into pieces just so it melts a little bit faster. But the idea is that the butter is emulsifying into this, so the chilled butter is going into the hot liquid, and it's staying as one sauce as opposed to adding like melted butter would separate, and you'd have risotto and melted butter sitting on top of it.
And I'll tell you, the Italians know how to make rice decadent.
You are right about that.
So we'll
Ryli,
just-
got a question here from Dennis Gleason from Brockton, Massachusetts. Dennis wants to know, do you think using mascarpone is key, or will other soft cheeses work?
Yeah, other soft cheeses, I'd just be careful with the flavor. I like mascarpone because it's a really neutral flavor. Whereas like if you used a brie or something like that, it might just be a little too strong for this. So I think mascarpone is just like a blank canvas, so you can kind of take it in any direction. But yeah, other cheeses will work.
So this is your own recipe.
Yeah, this one is mine.
So how do you invent something like this? Do you experiment? You don't find this like the first time. Do you like
No.
just tweak it?
Yeah, usually trial and error. You know, you kind of get an idea or a flavor or a vision in your head, and then you start messing around and toying around and putting it down on a plate, and you just constantly evolve it as you go. You adjust seasonings, flavor profiles until you get it where you really like it.
You dream about food? Do you like have dreams that you've made some great?
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes. I'm sure my girlfriend who's at home would say, yeah, this guy dreams about food, because I think one day I woke up thinking about donuts or something and decided I was going to start making donuts. So now I'm like making donuts at home.
Oh God, that's
Yeah, it just comes to me sometimes.
so you're a pastry chef too. You do that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I like pastries. I'm not going to say I'm a full-on chef. That's a whole different world when you're in there. But yeah, I love pastries, especially donuts.
This is looking good. Looks like it needs to be tasted again.
Okay. How's your tasting over there?
Oh my God. I'm just sorry, but I got to just go on the record here. I mean, Irish food versus Italian food. I know we're in the land of the Irish, and I love the Irish, but this is incredible.
Thank you. So now we can start, we can add our herbs in actually, if you want to go ahead and just add them all in. And I think it's important to add the herbs in at the end because you want to keep them as fresh as possible. Sometimes if you add them in the beginning or too soon, I feel like they lose a little bit of their lust or their flavor. So always add your herbs in at the end. I think you'll get the brightest flavor from them.
Wow. So this is a longer leaf here. This is, what is this again?
Basil?
Basil. It's a
Yep.
little bit, keep it a little longer.
We'll just stir our herbs in.
I'm sorry, what's this other one called again?
Thyme.
Thyme.
And once those are in, we can just taste it one more time. And you see the spoons. I mean, I taste it a lot. I think it's just not only risotto, but any food, just keep tasting it till you have it where you like it. In the kitchen, when we're making like sauces and stuff, it gets crazy. There's a lot of spoons going around.
So with this, is it cools more? Will the consistency get thicker, or was this how it will look?
Yeah, as it cools, it'll thicken up
It'll thicken
almost
up.
to like fully solidified. So in this container here, you'll see some kind of strands. These are just shaved asparagus
Try
that
to
I
get
did
another
raw.
question. Oh, Mike, please.
This is going to be part of our garnish. So we can take these and just dump them in our little bowl here. And I just use some white asparagus and some green asparagus.
Ryli, we have another question from a viewer. It's Jenna from Burnsville, Minnesota. And her question is this: being from Wisconsin, what is your favorite kind of cheese?
Wow. That's a loaded question. I'm very loyal to a couple brands, but wow. I really like.
Sargento is a Notre Dame family, so be real careful here.
I'm not gonna say any brands, but I really, really like Munster cheese.
Munster?
That was something when I was growing up that we got all the time for like sandwiches and stuff. And it's something that even as I grew up, I just learned to like it even more. So that's always a cheese that I go to for a lot of things.
Munster has a pretty pungent
Yeah.
smell, right? But
Yep. Yeah,
a
I love it.
softer taste.
Yes, I love it on burgers, sandwiches, anything like that. So we have some marinated sheep and goat's milk feta cheese that we're going to add into ours. But for our salad, we're just going to take a little bit of the oil that's in here, and we'll just take a spoon and we'll dress our asparagus.
What is this we're making? This is a salad?
Yeah, this is going to be garnished for our risotto.
Oh, okay. So no cheese, just the,
Oh yes, the cheese will go in after.
okay.
So we have our lemon cheese oil that we just toss our asparagus in.
So are we pretty much done with the risotto?
Yeah, the risotto's ready now. Now we're just building our garnishes and everything. Season your salad. Always season everything. So just a little bit of salt, little pinch of pepper. And I like the raw asparagus. I feel like it brings like an earthy tone, and it's a nice contrast from the really rich risotto to the raw asparagus that's citrusy and crunchy. So we'll just toss that around.
This is like a garnish to our,
Yeah.
okay. I'm going to pass on my garnish, I think.
So we have our asparagus garnish. These are our cured egg yolks. We cold smoke these and then cure them with salt and sugar. So the best way I could describe it, it's like egg parmesan. So this little tool here is a microplane, and you just take this and you run it across, and you can see it.
Yeah.
It comes off like Parmesan cheese. So that'll be a garnish. We just have a little bit of herb oil to go with it.
I'm still tasting my risotto.
Some microgreens. And then back at the kitchen, I just took some rye croutons and toasted them in butter and rosemary and thyme. So we have some crunchy croutons for texture. And I think we're ready. We can plate this up.
This is to die for. I got to tell you, I'm serious. Can I take my risotto home? Do we have something? Can I take it home in the La Creuset or whatever? I'm teasing. I'm joking about that. This is so good. I'm really, really pumped to have created this. This is pretty amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, and I mean, just a simple dish, but what you can do with it is pretty cool.
Great.
Yeah, so we'll plate this one and we can show you what the end product looks
So
like.
what it looks like. All right, so I got a big favor to ask you, a big question. So next time I'm eating at the Morris Inn, for some banquet or whatever, can I stroll back in the kitchen like a bigwig and just say hi?
Yeah, absolutely. I love it when people come back, say hi, taste food, all that kind of stuff. I really enjoy that.
I'm really going to have some health code violation by me walking back there, but I've so enjoyed this, and this is so delicious. This has got to be a dish for, we got to use this dish for one of the games this
that would
this
be
fall.
fun. That would
Yeah.
be really awesome. So yeah, I'll show you guys how I plate this. We have our ladle here, our bowl, and you can do a nice healthy portion. And you can kind of see the risotto is still jiggling. It's not set, which is how I want it. I want it to be really creamy and smooth like that. So now we'll just take our asparagus salad, kind of just put that right on top in the middle. And you have the asparagus ribbons going in different directions. These are just some microgreens we'll put around it for some nice color.
This is so good.
I'm glad you like it.
Honestly, God, it's so good. And let me tell you something. If I can make it, that means anybody can make it. So
Absolutely. I mean, it's a really great dish with just fundamental cooking. So we have some croutons in there. Do a little bit of shaved Parmesan around.
is this on the menu? Have you ever actually served this or not?
No. Maybe like a couple years ago, just at home, I probably did something like this, but not here yet.
We got to add this. I mean, this has got to be. If you need me to talk to Father John about adding this to the menu, be just like, Father John, be what? What are you talking about?
So we just put a little bit of herb oil on the microgreens, and then we'll finish just with a couple chunks of this marinated cheese.
What is this? This is just feta.
Yeah, it's a sheep and goat's milk feta that's marinated in lemon oil and peppercorns and fresh herbs.
So do you buy it that way, or do
Yeah,
you,
yeah, this company makes just some amazing cheese, and they actually sell it just like this.
Wow.
Everything's there. Then we just finish it with the cured egg yolk I showed you.
What's your girlfriend's name again?
Daria?
Daria.
Yep.
Does she know how good she has it?
I think so for the most part.
I'm sure there's other challenges that you might bring to the table, but when the cooking department,
That usually saves me.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and this is the asparagus risotto.
Wow, fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
Applausa, applausa, applausa.
Thank you.
Yeah, fantastic, Ryli. Ryli Vissers, this is as good as it gets. Thank you so much for sharing your skills, your passion, the fact that you feed and serve so many of our students, members of the Notre Dame family. Remember, anytime that you'll come in this fall in your new capacity, any banquets, any big meals at the Morris Inn, outside of Roars itself. Anything that will be in the new McKenna Hall will all be under Chef de Cuisine, Ryli Vissers. And we're really, what a privilege it was to be with you today, and thank you so much. I want to find a way to take this home because you just got me excited about tonight. So what would you do? How long could you keep this in the refrigerator for, do you think?
You could keep it for 5 days, I would say. And something cool that maybe you've heard of an arancini, but you could take this as it cools down and put it in balls or patties, and then you could 3-step bread it with flour, egg wash, and breadcrumbs, and then you could fry it. And it could be a little appetizer, or it could be an entree, or just a side component. It's really tasty.
Wow. Terrific. Well, thank you all for joining us today. We really appreciate it. Please know that we'll be posting a replay of this show later this evening at this very site and at our ND Loyal YouTube channel. You can find all the videos on the ND Loyal YouTube channel. Our next Fighting Irish Foodies is scheduled for Thursday, May 13th, again at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time start. And we will be joined by Notre Dame's executive chef for game day operations, Travis Johnson. The name is not nearly as cool as Ryli Vissers, but he's an excellent chef in his own right. Before we leave, I'd also like to alert you that our annual Notre Dame Day celebration will begin on Sunday, April 18th, at 6:42 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is also 1842 military time. There's a significance to that start. And we'll be telling stories for a little more than 29 hours. Lots of really inspirational Notre Dame stories. And we'll celebrate all things Notre Dame. So please join us on April 18th and April 19th coming up. Thank you again, Ryli, for joining us. Thank you to all of you. Happy Easter. God bless, and go Irish.